4WD Mechanics magazine is all about technology and performance. At the leading edge of technology is the Enerpulse Pulstar plasma core spark plugs. These spark plugs lower fuel consumption, lower emissions, improve torque, and improve throttle response. The pulse plug looks like a conventional spark plug but has an embedded high-Q capacitor that discharges at gap ionization. Unlike the limited conventional spark plug, the capacitor creates a pulsed power, which is the result of a steady accumulation of energy followed by a rapid release of that energy. The result is the delivery of a larger amount of instantaneous power over a shorter period of time. The dramatic increase in the size of the flame kernel is evident. The burn rate is accelerated compared to the premium iridium spark plug. In this film, you can see the dramatic difference in the plasma forming in front of the flame kernel on the Enerpulse Pulstar spark plug. This is creating a quicker fuel burn. The Enerpulse Pulstar spark plugs are optimal for power sports applications as well as automotive and light truck or medium-duty gasoline engines. This is the 4WD Mechanics magazine's Honda XR650R motorcycle. The bike is used in the field for shooting HD video. We need reliability both on and off pavement. We're about to install the Pulstar plasma core spark plug in the Honda XR650R engine. This engine has a fresh top end rebuild and is precisely tuned. To avoid damage to the spark plug electrode, we will not use the plug gapping tool in this application. Instead, we'll use feeler gauges and a conventional gapping tool and gap the plug accordingly. Here, we're setting the gap to 41 thousandths of an inch. We bend the ground strap carefully and then check the 41 thousandths gap again. We want the gap as parallel as possible. Now we'll remove the conventional spark plug. Make sure there's no debris around the plug as you remove it. Aluminum components are vulnerable. It's easier to tune and service this bike with the gas tank removed. Here, we loosen the spark plug with our fingertips. The old plug is a dark chocolate brown, slightly rich but fully acceptable. Pulstar recommends the use of dielectric grease on the terminal end of the spark plug for a better connection. We also put it on the ceramic of the plug to get a better seal between the boot and the spark plug. Start and thread the spark plug into position with your fingertips. Use a socket and extension. Use a torque wrench for final torque and keep the extension in the socket on center to prevent damage to the ceramic of the spark plug. 13 foot-pounds is plenty of final torque for this spark plug application. Install the cable and boot securely. Note that the spark plug ceramic is longer and the boot sticks out further. Carefully, without damaging the boot, seat the edge of the boot in the spark plug recess. This completes our Pulstar spark plug installation. Watch how easily the XR650R starts with proper tuning and the Pulstar spark plug. One kick start. magazine's XJ Cherokee 4-liter is trail and street driven. It has a 6-inch long arm lift kit, 33-inch tires, aftermarket front and rear bumpers with a worn front winch, ARB air lockers front and rear. This is a hardcore trail and daily driver. This popular Jeep 4-liter inline 6-cylinder engine is a perfect candidate for the Pulstar spark plugs. The multi-purpose use Jeep will provide an excellent test bed for these spark plugs. Here, we remove the spark plug boot and remove the wire completely so that we can test it for ohms resistance and make sure that it's firing properly. We'll do that with each of the spark plug leads and compare their inch resistance to factory specifications. In this case, we're within specification, and we'll make sure that each of the plug leads can fire the spark plug properly. That's all a part of accurate testing. The number 1 spark plug has been burning cleanly, and there are no signs of oil fouling or any other engine problems. We're replacing the spark plug with the Pulstar. The Pulstar electrode does have a substantial diameter, and in this case we will use the spark plug gapping tool. This will assure parallel surfaces. We'll use the factory gap of 35 thousandths of an inch, as recommended by Pulstar. In using this plug gapper, make sure that the pressure is on the steel shell and not on the ceramic of the spark plug. Be very careful in watching the position of each of the components so that when you squeeze the parallel gapper, you don't damage the plug in any way. The result is a properly gapped spark plug with the ground strap and electrode absolutely parallel. We'll check the gap now with a 35 thousandths of an inch blade type feeler gauge. Note that the gauge fits with all sides parallel. We'll use dielectric grease on both the terminal end and the ceramic. Here we're applying it to the ceramic to make certain that the boot gets a good dry seal. Off-road vehicles of any kind are often exposed to water. Difficult to access spark plugs can be started by attaching a hose to the terminal. This enables a softer approach to starting the first threads. Once a few threads are started properly, you can use a socket and extension to thread the spark plug further into the hole. We will use a torque wrench for final torque setting of the spark plugs. In this case, Jeep calls for 25 foot-pounds or 300 inch-pounds. We will set the torque accurately, holding the socket squarely on the plug to prevent any risk of damage to the ceramic. Install each spark plug lead as you go. That way you won't cross spark plug wires. If there is any doubt about the firing order, Jeep firing orders are 153624. Note that by installing one plug wire at a time, you eliminate the risk of attaching the wrong wire to the wrong plug. Now we move on to number 2 spark plug using a speed handle to facilitate fast removal of the spark plug. Continue this process with the rest of the spark plugs. Check each plug to see how it was firing, and also check the spark plug leads for ohms resistance. Short of using air tools, a speed handle is the quickest way to remove and install spark plugs. Used properly, a speed handle can generate a lot of torque. With practice, you can actually torque spark plugs to just the same amount of torque you would with a torque wrench. Note that we're using a swivel socket specifically for spark plugs that has a rubber insert. We will use a torque wrench to check the torque on each of these plugs. Again, the final torque is 25 foot-pounds or 300 inch-pounds. This is a 3/8 drive torque wrench, click type, with a long extension and a swivel spark plug socket. The spark plug hex size in this case is 5/8 inch. Note that each of the wires is back in place, fitted properly into the loom clips. Each of the spark plug boots is secure. Pulstar notes that at least one full tank of fuel must be burned before you notice dramatic differences in the performance. Also in the magazine's fleet is this 1984 Honda XR350R, which we use for filming alongside the more powerful Honda XR650R. This is our venerable Honda XR350R motorcycle, about to get a spark plug change to the Pulstar plasma core plug from Enerpulse. We'll start by checking the gap of the spark plug. Honda calls for 32 to 36 thousandths of an inch gap, and the Enerpulse plug is around 33 thousandths, so we do not have to gap the plug before installation in this application. If we were to gap the plug, in this case we would not use a plug gapper, as the electrode is somewhat fine in this particular spark plug. We would use a conventional gapping method and use this tool to bend the ground electrode strap slightly to close the gap if necessary, or open the gap if that were the case. We'll change out this spark plug as we would normally. The Honda XR350R has a deeply recessed plug and requires a special deep set socket available in the aftermarket or from Honda. We will not use a torque wrench to reset the torque on the plug, and instead rely on a traditional field type of spark plug change. Make sure there's no debris around the plug as you remove it, as that debris could fall into the cylinder and cause damage. The old plug has been burning properly. The air-fuel ratio, according to the coloration of the plug, a brown in this case, indicates that the jetting is correct. We're at 4,400 feet elevation, and operated at this elevation, we're getting a very clean burn. The end cap on the plug must be removed, as this insulator and spark plug lead require a threaded end, like this. Install the spark plug carefully, avoiding the risk of stripping threads or knocking debris into the engine. Use your fingertips to start the plug. The hex head size is different between the original spark plug and the new Enerpulse Pulstar plasma core plug. You'll need to make adjustments with your wrench size. With the plug installed properly, the plug cable and insulator are reinstalled and fit just like the original. Enerpulse recommends the use of dielectric grease as a barrier to moisture on the plug insulator and boot. We're about to test this Honda XR350R air-cooled single-cylinder 4-valve motorcycle. Our riding venue begins at 4,400 feet elevation and will go up into the surrounding mountain range and over 6,000 feet elevation. One of the benefits of the Enerpulse Pulstar plasma core spark plug is the more complete combustion, and we trust that this will enable us to make the altitude change without any severe air-fuel ratio issues. We expect this spark plug to make a big difference in this altitude change. The carburetors on this XR350R Honda are jetted for 4,000 feet elevation, and we will be climbing to over 6,000 feet elevation in this test. The surrounding mountain range also provides a load on the engine, and we'll be able to see how the Pulstar plug pulls in this kind of environment. The carburetors on this motorcycle are fixed jet, which makes it even more challenging to adjust for altitude. And we'll see in this riding experience how well the Enerpulse Pulstar plasma core spark plug compensates for altitude. Horses, once native to North America, find their way in these mountain ranges of the Great Basin. Instinct drives this young colt, who's a member of this band. There's a stallion and mares, some pregnant. In addition to domestic livestock, wild horses are using this spring-fed trough of clean, fresh water. In the high, semi-arid desert, this is a vital resource. XR350R and other dual carbureted XR motorcycle engines are allegedly the most difficult to tune and operate. I just demonstrated how well this XR350R runs and the advantages of the Enerpulse Pulstar plasma core spark plug. We climbed from 4,000 feet elevation to over 6,000 feet in 15 minutes, and the bike performed beautifully.